I would say it takes maturity to say, I'm not ready.
Right, exactly.
That's like a mature step.
Yes.
And I think there's something to just owning it.
Hey everyone, this is Yvette Hampton. Welcome back to the Schoolhouse Rocked Podcast. I am back with Monica Swanson. She is the author of Becoming Homeschoolers, and she's also a podcaster, a blogger. She's got a few other books. I mean, she's kind of doing all the things, and she's the mom of 4 boys. And so if you have not heard Monday's episode and yesterday's episode, go back and listen to those. You will be greatly encouraged. Before we get back into our conversation, though, I want to say thank you to our sponsor, BJU Press Homeschool. If you're looking for a great homeschool curriculum for any grade, any age, any subject, from a strong biblical worldview, check them out at bjupresshomeschool.com. If you don't know what you need, call them up, talk to their consultants, and they will help guide you to find something that's perfect for your family. And everything they do is from a really good, solid biblical worldview. So try them out, bjupresshomeschool.com. Well, Monica, welcome back to the podcast. I am so enjoying our conversation. We talked just at the very end and left a little bit of a cliffhanger about gap years. And so
Yes.
my daughter's taking a gap year this year. You've had your 2 oldest take gap years. Why did they do that? What was their purpose in taking a gap year?
Right. I feel like gap years always kind of surprise people. And I'm like, everyone should think about a gap year. So I love that you bring this up. I think, if I'm really honest here, my oldest took a gap year because I just think I didn't homeschool him through high school with a real plan for what was to come next. And I mean, he was fairly independent in his schooling, but when it came to, he wanted to go to college. He knew that. He kind of had his eyes set on, some private Christian schools in Southern California that we couldn't afford. So we knew a scholarship would be in order, but we weren't quite ready. Like his senior year, he just didn't do the early applications. He had taken the ACT and SAT, but he knew he could probably improve his score. So I started to get a little panicked, and I was like, hey, you could always take a gap year. Now he was going to graduate at 17, turning 18 a couple months later, but I think that really resonated with him because I don't think he felt mature or emotionally ready to leave home. But using a gap year gave him that chance to kind of pull it together, figure it out, take some time, zoom out like we keep talking about. And it was such a great year. I know there's things that some people do. You can go away to programs, you can do ministry stuff. My son just stayed home. He worked at a restaurant. It was tough work, but that gave him the chance to, take the ACT another time. Super improved his scores, to really get sick and tired of working at a restaurant and not want to work there anymore. And also just to really take his time as he considered colleges, filling out his applications, looking into scholarships. Things went so well for him that this next one in line was like, well, I want to do the same thing. It made sense. It worked for him. So he also worked at the same restaurant, went through the same process, and we were really glad we did it. I feel like this was a game changer for them. Yeah.
You said that your oldest didn't quite feel mature or ready enough emotionally to jump in. And I think that's an important thing to know because it seems like, you look at your life, Monica, and you look at your boys and you're talking about them, and we look on social media and we see all these other homeschool families and we think like, they're so perfect. They have it all together and their kids graduate from high school and they know exactly what they want. And I think that can make us really insecure and feel very inadequate as parents. Cause like, well, maybe we didn't do something right. Why doesn't my child feel mature enough or ready for adult life?
You're right.
And it doesn't really matter. I mean, if we're being intentional about parenting our kids and raising them and homeschooling them, they may not still feel ready at graduation to jump into adulthood.
Absolutely.
It's heavy. I mean, adulting is hard.
Yes, I would say it takes maturity to say, I'm not ready.
Right, exactly.
That's like a mature step.
Yes.
And I think there's something to just owning it and being okay with it.
Yeah.
Like for your daughter, I just encourage her to just be like, yeah, I'm taking a gap year.
Yeah.
Like, don't explain it. You don't have to apologize to anyone. This is actually a really mature move.
Yeah.
And let people think what they will. But you'll live it out and show them what that looks like, and what comes next is up to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Every kid is different, and
Yes.
they're ready at different stages of life for different things and for what's coming up next. And so doesn't mean that mom is doing it wrong because her kid takes a gap year or that she's doing it right because her kid goes to college. Like every kid is so different. So, and homeschooling allows for that. So talk about some of the joys and challenges of homeschooling. Because man, you've been through the years of homeschooling and it can be really hard. It can be really joyful, but it can also be really challenging. So what are some of the things that as you look back are some of the most joyful times and then some of the most challenging times you've had?
Right. I think like with all parts of parenting, you see so much clearer looking back. And I think back to the joyful times were a lot of just the regular days. And the treasures I had just in spending that sweet time over lunch with my boys, hearing them read a paper that they wrote that I wouldn't have probably witnessed if they were doing that somewhere else. Just so many of the sweet moments around the house doing life as a family. Now, that's probably mixed with the same challenges, which was there were 4 kids around the house all the time. And I do appreciate a little peace and quiet, and I rarely have that. And so I think that sometimes I struggled with just the chaos, just feeling like, will my house ever feel clean and organized? Will I ever get to catch my breath and do something without being interrupted? So I think the hectic nature sometimes of just having a full house, especially with boys maybe, but the joys and the challenges were all mixed. And now looking back, it's much more joy than challenge. And maybe I just kind of wish I had appreciated it more.
I'm with you. Let's talk about sports a little bit, because I know we've talked about your kids. You've got your one son who's, he's a professional surfer, which I think is so super cool. Talk about sports, because we don't talk too much about sports in the homeschooling world, but I know that as homeschooling is growing, there are more and more parts of the country. I mean, where we live in Tulsa, we have every sport imaginable for homeschoolers,
so
which is,
blessed.
we've got like a whole football team and baseball and track and basketball. It's pretty amazing.
Okay.
I know that's not normal.
Count your
not
blessings.
right.
Because Hawaii is not like that.
No, most places don't have that. But I love that you're in a place that doesn't have access to all of that stuff, but you might have a child who's really athletic. And this is one of the reasons why oftentimes parents will say, well, I can't homeschool. I have to put my kid in school because they're made to be an athlete.
Yes. Huge, huge topic. And I dedicate a whole chapter to this topic in Becoming Homeschoolers, because we do love sports in our family.
Yeah.
And, this is one of the things that's going to vary state by state and sometimes district by district.
Yeah.
But I have a really packed resource list in the book. And so if sports is on your mind, I point to all the best places to figure out how to navigate. Fortunately, my kids have done individual sports where they get to do what they want. So we have a golf, my 14-year-old golfs, and, my second youngest son is a surfer, but it can be challenging. This is an area, I'm just really honest. If your kid is cut out to be an NFL player, maybe move to Oklahoma. There are places where you can do that, because there are things like football that not all communities have enough homeschoolers to have a full team. So it can be challenging. I know that for my golfer son, who would love to get a scholarship to college in golf, he'd like to play, a Division I team. They make it really, really hard for homeschoolers to be to be able to do that.
Sure.
So I'm navigating that right now.
Yeah.
It's not simple, but hey, either individual sports are a good way to go, or finding a community where there is some options for homeschoolers. And it is so worth it. It is so worth it.
Yeah.
And what's the percentage of kids that actually end up playing professional sports, right? If you're going to not homeschool for that reason, I'm going to challenge you to really reconsider what your motivations are.
Yeah, absolutely. That is a really good encouragement, because again, we're looking at the whole picture, right?
Zooming out.
We're zooming out. We're looking at that whole picture. And that's hard. I'm sure that's a hard pill to swallow for moms and dads and kids who really want to be in sports. But yeah. And I imagine that it's probably harder for homeschoolers to be recognized in sports and get sporting scholarships, because those recruiters just aren't where the homeschooled kids are if they're not playing on a big team or a team that, has any kind of reputation. So,
Well, and because I'm in it right now, I'll just voice my frustration, because I would love to see this change. What I've discovered, I mentioned Division I and NCAA, they so scrutinize homeschoolers to the point that it's nearly impossible, especially Hawaii and New York for some reason.
Wow.
They require so much what I've learned recently, and maybe I'm going to learn more, but you really have to have an official diploma, not a homeschool transcript of any sort. They make it so hard. And I'm looking at these schools going, how many public school students have basically, and they hardly can read.
Right.
And they're getting full ride scholarships to Division I schools.
Right.
They have a terrible education. They're recruiting them. They go, but then they scrutinize homeschoolers to like no end. And I'm like, really? I think there's something a little off in the system that I'd like to see change.
Right. Well, it's because so many, states especially are like, they're so big into their college sports. Mm-hmm. I mean, where we are, it's like the thing. It wasn't in California. Los Angeles wasn't like that so much, but here it's OU and OSU. I mean, they're rivals and they're like, you go anywhere and you see red and orange and white. And I mean, it's just all over the place. And so, I can see that would be very difficult because those colleges, they may not care that those kids can get through their classes with, good grades. They want strong sports teams because that's really what brings in the money.
Yep. So, yes, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, that's a whole nother topic,
one.
But have you tried CTC math yet with your child? Here's a testimonial from another happy homeschool mom. Amber said, I'm absolutely thrilled with CTC math. It's a rare find that I've used with my children for more than 5 years now. I have 6 children using CTC math, and each child has found it easy to navigate and very applicable. Thank you so much for all that you are doing in providing quality math lessons for my children. If you're looking for a great online math program, visit ctcmath.com. That's ctcmath.com. Are you looking for a homeschool curriculum that goes beyond textbooks and truly engages your children in the joy of learning? Apologia's award-winning curriculum is written by homeschool parents to specifically meet your needs and captivate your students with hands-on activities and experiments that make learning unforgettable. With an easy-to-follow, open-and-go format, Apologia takes the stress out of planning and provides a simple roadmap that can easily be tailored to your family's needs. Explore live classes or self-paced courses designed to accommodate every student's unique learning style. Elevate your child's education, spark their curiosity, and nurture a lifelong love for learning with Apologia. Discover Apologia today at apologia.com. We are back with Monica. As we're looking at this book, you wrote this book, Becoming Homeschoolers, Give Your Kids a Great Education, a Strong Family, and a Life They'll Thank You For Later. You've done such a beautiful job writing this book. What do you hope that parents will take away from this book as they're reading it and being encouraged by it?
I think that I wanted to write the book that I wish I had when I was starting off my homeschool journey. It's, I found a lot of books out there that were, kind of that fluffy, magical, talking about philosophies of homeschool and, throwing a blanket under a tree and reading great classical literature. And those were all maybe inspiring. But I'm the type of person that's like, tell me what to do. I need to know what to do. And further, if I don't necessarily dream of some magical homeschool experience, I just want to give my kids enough that I can say, they're educated. What does that look like? So I really wanted to make this a guidebook from preschool to college. A lot of people stress out about whether or not their kids can go to college. There's been kind of a stereotype that, homeschoolers don't go to college. And I think oftentimes they don't for good reason. I don't think college is for everyone.
Yeah.
But for those who do want to keep that door open, I wanted to provide a guidebook. So I would say this is a guidebook, but it opens with, as we already touched on, 20 good reasons to homeschool, reasons people don't homeschool. I'm kind of giving the big sister tough love and saying, is that really a good reason to not homeschool? Let's challenge that. Maybe there's a way around it. So it's kind of covering that decision. If you're on the fence trying to decide, or should we stick with it, it's there for that. And then it's a guidebook. And I just hope people finish the book encouraged, inspired, reminded why they started if they are homeschooling, and just knowing that they're not alone, that it's not easy and there is no perfect education. But goodness, when you look at the options out there today and the world we're raising our kids in, it is so worthwhile to consider and take that leap and just give it your all. I mean, you only have these kids for a short time, really, in the big picture of life. And what better contribution to the world, to God's kingdom, can you give than a kid who is raised well and grounded in biblical truth?
Amen. Amen. Talk really quickly about your podcast, because I know you kind of went from the Boy Mom podcast
That's right.
to the Monica Swanson podcast. Talk about what you do on your podcast. And I know people, I always see all the time, I mean, I feel like I see it once a week. Somebody will post on Facebook and one of the Christian homeschool Facebook groups, or just in like a mom parenting group or something, what are your favorite podcasts? And it's always such a blessing when people say Schoolhouse Rocked. I'm like, yay.
Yes.
But people are always looking for good podcasts, including myself. I love to listen to podcasts. Talk about your podcast. What do you talk about?
Thank you.
And how did you transition from the boy one to just Monica Swanson?
Yes, I think I still have a lot of boy moms who listen, maybe primarily. But yes, because my book, Raising Amazing, wasn't just for raising boys. It also included raising girls and dads. I wanted to shift and give myself freedom to talk about all kinds of things. So the Monica Swanson podcast comes out every Wednesday. And it's shifting a little bit as we speak. I feel like there's so many topics I could talk about and want to talk about, but I'm really trying to focus on the things that I'm most passionate about. And that's going to be, biblical parenting, family life. I do love health and wellness. My background is sports medicine. My husband's a doctor, so I'm probably going to be covering a few more women's wellness topics, which I think is super fun. But I really am all about being practical, biblical, really offering, kind of like I said in the book, what to do, not fluffy concepts, but I want to give people really practical, helpful advice. So that's what I do. I do a lot of interviews. People love it when I have my boys on. That's super fun to talk to my grown boys. And so I'm having a great time growing the podcast.
Yeah, love it. We will put a link to that, of course, in the show notes, or you guys can just look for it wherever you're listening to the Schoolhouse Rocked podcast. Talk about really quickly your book, Raising Amazing. So you mentioned that book, because I know we talked, I don't know what happened. We were emailing back and forth about having you on to talk about that. And then I don't even know what happened.
Anytime.
Talk about that real quick.
Yes. Raising Amazing grew out of my book, Boy Mom. So many people were like, well, I have only daughters, but I love Boy Mom. Can you, share more for all of us? Yeah. So really what Raising Amazing is it is a book on raising kids of character and faith. My husband shares a word to the dads at the end of each chapter, which I think is really good, because so many people are always like, reading out loud or sharing it with their husband. I'm like, no, this is a short word to the dad, the Cliff Notes version. And my husband gives a good, hard word, encouraging word to the dads. And every chapter also has a short thought from one of my boys, where they share maybe from their experience, some encouragement, hoping that some of the parents will read these to the kids. So that book has been super fun and really goes in a little bit deeper on topics of character and faith. And it's just been super fun to get that out in the world as well.
That's so cool. So it was really a family affair putting this book together.
It was such a family affair. So much fun in that way.
That is awesome. Well, we'll put a link to that, of course, in the show notes as well. Monica, thank you so much for being with us this week. And your website is monicaswanson.com. We will link that, but you guys don't need a link. It's so easy. Just go to monicaswanson.com. It's spelled exactly as you would think. MONICASWANSON, monicaswanson.com. And you've got lots of blog posts and stuff on there, lots of great stuff.
Many years of work.
One more question. Let me ask you this real quick, because you quickly mentioned this, I think at the end of yesterday's episode, I'm not sure, that you have some courses.
I do.
What course? I don't know anything about your courses. Why?
Oh my
Tell
goodness.
me what they
I'll
are.
have to share it with you.
Okay.
So the character training course also grew out of my book, Boy Mom, where I share a story in my chapter on character about something I went through that was challenging when my son hit his teenage years. And I have had a flood of emails ever since saying, tell me more. I want to do this character training thing. So during 2020, I put it into a course, and I open the course 3 times a year. But each time I get so many people who are diving in, who really want to raise kids of character. It is a super packed, fun online course. But I'm also, depending on when this comes out very soon, I have a course coming out called the Well-Rounded Homeschooler. Okay. So if you're homeschooling and you just want to make sure you're not missing anything, you want to make sure you're covering, like we've talked about, sports and passions and interests and the social topic, that's all going to be in the Well-Rounded Homeschooler course. There'll be a link to that at my website. And I've got more courses coming. I just love doing the online course thing. It's been super fun, and I think people have really enjoyed it.
That is awesome. Well,
thanks for asking.
We'll get all of that information in the show notes so you guys can find it quickly and easily. Monica, thank you again so much for being with us this week. It has been such a joy talking with you.
Thank you. I love talking to you.
Yeah. And I am not going to stop being jealous of your background and the fact that you are in Hawaii. So, for us on the mainland, it's always like, are we ever going to make it to Hawaii? We've been there once. My husband and I went for our 7-year anniversary and we went to Kauai and Maui, and it was amazing. Nice. And we would love to go back again. So I don't know, maybe this next year. It's our 30th anniversary is coming up in February. So maybe we'll go see you, Monica.
Let's do it.
30 years. That would be awesome. Well, thank you guys for listening. We are so grateful for you. If there's any way we can be praying for you or anything we can do to serve you, send us an email. And if there are guests you want to hear from, topics you want us to discuss, anything, we are here to be a blessing to you, the homeschool community. And so let us know how we can do that. podcast@schoolhouserocked.com. Stay tuned to hear what's coming up next week on the podcast, and have a great rest of your week. We'll see you back here then. Bye.
Laughing in the face of imposter syndrome and coming to you from the epicenter of manly overconfidence, I'm your host, Yvette Hampton, and you are listening to The Thinking Dad.
Even if we're able to push the evildoers and the totalitarians back for another generation, maybe if we work really hard, maybe even 2 generations, if they've got the young people, it's over.
I often think about Daniel's parents, who you don't hear anything about. But they must have laid down the foundation for Daniel to be able to go into Babylon and not fall.
We're in that very beginning part of the cycle for tough times. We've been fat and happy. We've been enjoying we're lazy because we enjoy so much freedom. We got all these blessings, and why would you go do the hard work? And so for a long time now, decades, we haven't had to do the hard work. We've been living on the fumes of previous generations paying the price. And we got to raise the bar and say, I'm willing to give more of my life, that's my time, more of my money, of course, that's our fortune, and more of my sacred honor, which is my reputation. I'm willing to put it all on the line. Every single one of us has to be willing to do that.
Join us for the first season of The Thinking Dad at thinkingdad.net.
I'm one of those people that looks ahead. And I remember in preschool, I was always mourning the preschool years being over, and then in elementary school years, I was always mourning the fact that I'm now going to have a middle schooler. I struggle with the kids growing up. I said, I could forever do this the rest of my life. And I remember I now have a high schooler, and I called Rachel and I'm like, I feel like I can't breathe. I feel like I'm constantly in this state of mourning, of knowing that she's going to launch and I'm going to be a train wreck. She gave me the greatest advice, and she said, here's the thing. When it happens, it is going to literally feel like ripping your heart out. Like it's going to hurt. And she's the first person that validated that, because everybody else was like, oh, the Lord prepares you for it. And by the time they leave, they've already, left so much little by little that you're going to be ready for them to go. And in the back of my head, I'm like, I'm not going to feel that way. I just know it. I know it's going to hurt. And so she validated that, but then she gave me the best wisdom, and she said, because it's going to hurt so bad in that moment, stop making it hurt ahead of time. Like, enjoy the last years while you have them. Don't keep projecting as to what's coming. Like, fully be in the moment that you're in. And so that's what I want to share with all the moms on this journey. When you're in the preschool years, be there fully. Don't start to get anxious and stressed and have all those feelings about what's next. God knows what's next, and you're going to fully feel it when it comes. But don't worry about tomorrow.